Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Fan Behavior and F1 Podcast. I am Zoe. Today, I'm not joined by Hannah, but I am joined by a friend.
Another redhead.
Another redhead. That is so true. Our friend Fev, who is a new F1 fan. Now, but this is not the first time you've been on the show.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Fev, for the OG listeners, if there are any out there, I don't know how many, maybe like my dad and a couple of other people. Fev was, I think you were our very first guest.
It's an honor.
Back in, I think the summer of 2022, when we had our pop culture, when we were just a pop culture podcast, you came on to talk about Broadway, which was amazing.
And shows how little I probably know about F1. I don't know if there's much Broadway F1 crossover.
No, what it does show is that you are a fan.
Yes.
You're a fangirl.
Yes, fangirl.
And that is what this sport attracts, is what I've found, which I think is wonderful. I think is amazing. And yeah, so there's a lot to get into this episode. We are going, this whole episode is going to be about the new F1 fan, both what it looks like to be a new F1 fan, like how you got into the sport. I think there's a lot of people who listen to our show who are trying to get their friends and family into the F1, and they're trying to figure out like the best way to do that. And so I think going to the source, like somebody who is in the thick of like getting introduced to the sport, I think is a great way for people to get tips and tricks on luring their friends and family. Because it's so funny, like to like a normal person, I probably am a new F1 fan. Like I've only been a fan for 2 years, but I cannot remember what I don't remember that life.
Yeah. Once you're in it,
you know,
you're
and
like
I think
whirlwind.
Having a podcast and like dedicating my life essentially to this sport has like expedited my fandom so much so that I'm not like a normal new F1 fan.
Not a normal mom.
No. And I don't mean that as like I don't mean that to like sound pretentious. It's just like too much of my life has been dedicated to this. So I can't even go back to the girl that I was when I found the sport back in whatever it was, February 2022. But you kind of just found the sport. There's so much to get into. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about what it means to be a new F1 fan. I think there's a lot of conversation around like people coming into the sport that are new, and like, do the original OG F1 fans like having new F1 fans? Like, I'm curious your perspective about that. And then you're going to turn the tables and you're going to ask me questions about F1.
Yeah, no stupid questions.
No dumb questions here. And I think, again, a lot of people found our show when they first became F1 fans. I think there's a lot of people listening to this who maybe it's like their first full F1 season they're about to watch. And I also think when you like listen to an F1 podcast, people aren't like really explaining like terms and rules. Yeah. Like they kind of just like, you kind of just jump in unless you're listening to like an F1 101 thing. Yeah. So we're going to answer some of your questions. Yes. There's no dumb questions. that is the real, like, that's the main point of this whole thing is like, it's okay to come as you are. So I'm excited. Okay. First things first, I would love for you to talk about when you first became aware of F1, like ever. And then like, kind of how your interest has changed, let's say over the last few years.
Yeah. Okay. I was actually thinking about this. The only F1 person I've ever like known their name is Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
Like,
yes.
I feel like I just like even in high school.
Really?
I remember his name like through
because of why?
Just because I'm always like on social media. Honestly, like I feel like I knew he was really good. But I didn't even know what he was doing. Like, I could tell you he was maybe a car person, but I had no idea what was happening.
I was the same thing. I knew of him honestly because of his like friendship with the Kardashians.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that.
He was like in some of their like, I remember, I think they had maybe gone to a couple races and like he was in their Instagram stories and stuff over the years. And I like, I like knew him as like a car, like a really famous car racer, but like that was essentially it.
I'm not gonna lie. Like if you would have asked me before, I probably would have guessed he was in NASCAR. Like I would have no idea. Like I've just heard his name and so that was it. So, but that was like a long time ago, and then I really never heard anything about it. And then I do have friends that are like IndyCars, I feel like, and did mention Formula One. And when I'd be like, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's racing. You wouldn't like it. So like I feel like I had friends who just like, I don't know. I'm a Broadway girl. So like,
you're a Broadway Taylor Swift girl.
Yeah, like probably not. You're right. I've never liked a car in my life. So I did have that kind of like, oh, we're watching the race this weekend.
Yes.
Or yeah, even people who like do like go to brunch and watch the race and stuff like that. And then I feel like I really started to pick up on it like when you started to pick up on it. Like I feel like,
well, you had to because you were already following our Instagram account. So like you were force fed.
I was force fed against my will. No, but then then you started to be like, I remember the first time you showed me pictures of everybody.
Oh,
and
you
were like, what do you think about this guy? And I have no context of these people. So, things have changed. But I genuinely, like, I don't know any of their personalities, don't know anything. I'm just like, I mean, they're not like
ugly,
but like, I'm not going to like stop them on the street and like fangirl. So that's where I was probably, I don't know, like a year ago.
Yeah.
Or
well,
so.
you and Taylor came over to watch a race. They came over to watch Silverstone this past year in July. Yeah. And so you had seen a race. Yeah. Like, but again, that was also you had just come off of a night out.
Oh yeah. And do you want to hear my like thought process? I had no idea what I was getting into, but we just came over to Zoe's house, and the first part, like when they ready, set, go. Is that what they say?
Lights out and away we go.
Lights out and away we go. So there we go. So when it was like very tense at first, and then I didn't realize how long the races were, and so it was like chill. We were just chatting about like the night before and yada yada. I didn't realize it was like chill most of the time, and then it gets like picks up.
Yes. Well, we can get into that too, because I feel like
I didn't realize
it's so funny when people, because like, for example, our friend Taylor, she watched 2 races, I think my first season of being a fan, and they were both like the craziest races of the year. Like they were insane, like so much was happening, and I was like, damn, she's really spoiled because it's not every race. So it's always like a crapshoot if you're introducing someone to the sport with a race, because you're like, it could be an amazing race, it could be a really boring race. It just sort of depends. And unfortunately, Silverstone this past year was sort of a meh race. That's typically a very good one. So I feel like it's always hard to like when they only come for the one race, because it definitely goes up and down throughout the season.
Yeah. Do you remember your first race that you watched?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it was the first race of the 20. So I watched Drive to Survive in February 2022. They always drop. So the F1 season starts in March. Well, I guess this year it's going to start in February, but typically starts in March. And so they always drop the like newest Drive to Survive season like the week before the new season starts. So like,
okay,
it will go over the last season right before the new season begins. And so I just like waltzed right into that 2022 season. And so the first race I watched was Bahrain 2022. And it's so funny to think back on that. And we'll get into this when you ask me questions. But like, I knew nothing. I knew nothing. Like, because Drive to Survive doesn't, and it's I don't fault them for it, but they don't explain to you very much about like the actual like rules and what's happening in a race, which I don't, again, like they're making a TV show.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them. And I had no one in my life who knew anything about this sport. I was watching it by myself. I had experienced all this stuff on my own. So like I was having to just trial by fire. Is that the?
Now I don't even.
I think it's trial by fire. I don't know.
Yeah. We're going with it.
I just was thrown in off the deep end, and I think that's honestly the best way to do it is just to kind of like learn by watching, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, so okay, so you watched Silverstone, and then how did we get to where we are now?
Well, and then I mean, I loved seeing Zoe and Hannah's content and stuff, and I was like, I need to give this a go.
You're always very nice about like, well, you're like I always love seeing you like in the comments of stuff even before you watch Drive to Survive, because I was like, she doesn't really know what's going on, but it's so nice that you support. Like it really genuinely is so nice. Yeah,
I feel like
what was it?
I think it was a slow build, but I mean, so like I said, the first time I saw the boys, most of the boys, I was like, meh. But then I start seeing their personalities come out through like some of the videos and content and stuff. I can't pinpoint. I wish I could pinpoint like which one really got me. I mean, I love seeing like Charles Leclerc like on his boat in Monte Carlo. Like, I just love like, I don't know, exuberant things.
But I think you need to share who your favorite, like who really caught your eye.
I mean, I love Lando. So every time I see Lando content, I'm like, this man.
I should also give some context. Fev was the friend that I went to visit in Scotland in December. And before getting there, I was like, I think you had said like, I have some time off. And I said, you got to watch Drive to Survive.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Lando is not in the show until the second season, I think.
Season, yeah. Definitely. Second season, episode 3.
But you were very clear, even before you watched the show, that you were like, you were into Lando. You loved Lando. And what about him?
I think he has just the greatest personality, and I think he just like exudes. I think he has a little bit of Daniel Ricciardo like energy, the puppy dog energy to him that I just think he's the greatest. I think he's just adorable. Oh no, this is
great. I mean, this is what we do.
I don't know.
We talk about them like, I mean, because this is the thing I think is interesting about Formula One, and we can probably dive into this more later, but like the sports / like pop culture like merger that happens, I feel like the sport is more than a sport. It's like also like, it's hard to explain to people who don't know anything about it, but it
pop
really
culture.
It's like so different than like, let's use the Chiefs as an example. Like, we both are Chiefs fans, and I love so many of the players on the Chiefs, but I don't look, and probably it's because it's a team sport, but like they're different personalities than I think Formula One drivers. Like, they don't have to be as like Instagram celebrity, like TikTok star as I feel like F1 drivers have to be.
I agree.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
I love Lando has always like quick answers to things too. And I just love even like his first episode on Drive to Survive when he's like, so, all these past drivers have been done in a couple of years. Like, why are you going to be any different? And he's just like, I'm better.
He's very sassy.
I love like, I'm better. What do you mean?
He's confident. Yeah. He's got it all.
Yeah.
So you're currently, as you said prior to recording, you're in season 2.
Yeah, season 2.
So your early days.
Yeah.
I would love to know what you think of Drive to Survive, just like as a TV show.
Yeah, as a TV show, I mean, okay, to me, the technical parts, I know you were saying like sometimes Drive to Survive doesn't do a great job at the technical parts, but I don't want the technical parts, honestly, because that's not like what I'm here for, which is probably a lot of reason why like people don't love new Formula One fans, because I'm like, I don't really care about their brakes and their tires and whatever. I don't really know what it means, but maybe someday I will get into it.
Yes.
I will care, but right now I'm really into like their personalities and how, Max is calling people pussies and stuff like that just kills me. So I'm still like getting into that part, and I think they tease parts of it and without it being too much.
Yeah.
Which is perfect for me because I don't want the technical parts that would scare me away quickly.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I think they do a really good job. I mean, there's like the gatekeeper F1 fans who like don't love that people get into the sport through a television show.
Right.
Which is so funny to me because it's like,
I was thinking about that.
Like, I think of it in terms of like, I actually was just thinking about it recently in terms of all the Taylor Swift fans who are becoming Chiefs fans. And
I'm like,
come on in. Like, I love it. I love more the merrier, more people that are interested in what I'm interested in. I think it's great. I don't expect a Taylor Swift fan who's been interested in football for 2 months to have any idea or know as much as I know, but that's okay.
And like, okay, I guess probably I'm guessing is the Formula One, like the whole thing about don't want new fans. It's like, is it because the ticket prices are more expensive?
I mean,
because Chiefs tickets are more expensive now too.
I think that would, I think that's what they say the reasoning is, but I don't think it actually is the reason.
Like, this is my thing.
I think it's more of like, I've been here from the beginning.
Yeah.
all these people are coming in because it's like
understand
trendy and cool. But my thing, and I think what I've always felt like is I had no other way of getting into this. Like, I can't help it that I didn't grow up with my dad watching Formula One, and I had no one else in my life who watched it. So yes, I got into the show through television, or sport through a television show. And yes, the sport, like when you watch Formula One and then you watch Drive to Survive, I can tell so much of it is like, okay, that wasn't quite accurate, or that was very like cut up, or, you know, yes. Like, it's not that it's fake necessarily, just it's a television show. It's like not fully, they make things seem way more dramatic than it was, but it's a TV show, and as you said, you get the personality, and that's the point, I think, of the show is like, okay, this is a sport, draw you in, lay of the land, kind of give you the main people involved, and then you can get into the sport from there.
Totally. Interesting.
Yeah. So, and I guess the other part of that is like, do you think the show does a good job of getting people interested in Formula One?
Yes. I mean, I think they're catering to a certain type of person.
Yes.
Like somebody who, you know, goes in deep, and then like they're hoping, I assume they are hoping that once you see it, you go follow these people, or you go look more into it, and then you start to look at, okay, when's the next race? Like when, you know, those like doing more digging. I don't think they're catering to like the casual, like my dad or somebody.
Interesting.
Like, I don't think they're catering to somebody like that, but I think they're catering to people like us who are hardcore fangirls of things. And
yes. I think that's interesting, because like, I agree with you and I don't agree with you, because I feel like my parents watched the show a few months after I watched it, and they both really liked it.
Oh yeah.
And like my dad, and a part of it is I think also just like we have this podcast and whatever, so
yeah,
I think there's more interest because of that. But also I think my dad, I think he became interested in, like, now he watches every F1 race, and he's invested. My mom is sort of like, and we can this will be funny to talk about later, but like she's sort of like interested but sort of not interested.
Right.
So I think it does, but I do think you have to be somebody who's open to, like, you have to be willing or want to like get to know the personality, like, because that's the main draw of the show.
Sure.
And if you don't care about that stuff, then it's not really going to be for you. It's not going to be like, but I don't know. There's like Hard Knocks, you know, like
right,
and that's the same sort of deal.
No, and I also think of like, I don't know. People are like, oh, I hate like The Bachelor or something like that, or especially like guys who are like, I don't like drama shows, like I don't like reality TV sort of stuff. But once they sit down, you know, they're like hooked. I know everybody has like a husband or a brother or boyfriend who like walks in the room and catches them something, and they're like, you know, but
totally.
I think that may happen, and they have, I mean, it's easier when you can tie it to a sport or something like that too, where it's like you have the personality, you have kind of the drama, but then you also have, you know, a sport attached to it.
Which I completely agree.
I think a good way to get like the other side in too.
Totally.
It's got it all.
Okay, so from the show, what you've seen so far, who do you think has been portrayed really well, and then who do you think has been portrayed badly? Like, who have you sort of gotten?
I mean, they strategically put Daniel Ricciardo as the opening scene of season 1, episode 1, for a reason. Like, he's obviously portrayed really well, but I think they actually do a good job of kind of being like, well, he switched to Renault or whatever, and they kind of do a little twist on that of like, is he being selfish? Is he doing this for the team? I don't know. It was interesting to hear how they phrase that. But him, obviously, I think Charles Leclerc, like, I mean, his story is, how could you not like that
totally
kid? Like, I mean,
completely agree.
You have to cheer for him. Is there anybody in the world that doesn't like him?
I mean, it is funny. I think
very likable.
He's so likable. He's so likable. And as you said, like him, Daniel, there are certain people where it's just like, they were just sort of made for this story, like what Charles, because of his like
personality actors, right? Like,
but like I mean, Charles Leclerc, like he has like the, you know, sad story, like and like the sort of redemption. You know, you empathize with him and sympathize with him and his story, and then obviously Daniel is just like this sort of like the main character energy. So who are your least favorites?
Okay. Yeah, I had to write them down because I am really bad at the names.
It's okay.
I don't really love Nico Hulkenberg right now.
Okay. Yeah.
He just is giving like this energy is not my favorite. But I mean, I just like don't know enough. I feel like I don't know. I couldn't get a ton. And then Kevin Magnussen has bad energy too. And are they on the same?
They're both on Haas.
See, I don't like
at this time
that whole. I don't, and maybe you can help explain this. But like, I understand there's 2 guys on each team, right? Yeah. And then, but they're also competing against each other, obviously, because there's individual too.
Yes.
So individual and team, but I mean, I feel like it's natural, right, to individual, like you want to do your best, but I'm also like, they kind of seem like they're button heads. I don't know. Is that right?
Okay. So when at the time that you're watching, they're on different teams.
Okay.
So
well, they seem like they don't like each other.
Yeah, they don't like each other.
Okay.
But now in the present day, they are on the same team.
Oh.
And I don't want to give you any spoilers necessarily, but they both end up leaving F1 for a period of time. They both get kicked off of their respective teams.
Okay.
And then come back to the sport. So you'll get to experience that in the show. And they both end up back at Haas.
Oh.
At least current time. So
interesting.
Yeah. So they've been able to put their differences aside and come together. But it's funny. Like Hannah really loves Kevin Magnussen, and she also likes Nico Hulkenberg, but I've never really, I like Kevin. I think he's like fine. I find the Haas stuff interesting because of Gunther, their team principal. Yes. I think he's funny and entertaining. Yes. But I've never really clicked with them particularly. How do you feel about Max
Verstappen?
Yeah.
I love him. You know, I love him
because I think that's like people either watch season 1 and they're like, I hate this guy, or I love this guy.
He's so serious that it's unserious. Like he's unseriously serious, and I just like love that.
Yeah, he's very much
he's dry and just he's funny.
He's so funny.
I adore him. I think he's hilarious.
I think that's great. I think it's great. I think the more people that I like love the idea that someone will watch, because I think there's this whole like narrative that if you get into this show or the sport through the show, you're gonna hate Max. But I love that you're the opposite.
Yeah, I like who I like. It's just based on. I mean, I just the pussy comment.
I know
killed
the
me.
Pussy is hilarious.
I loved that.
Do you care how they perform on track? Like, will you be more interested in somebody because they're really good?
I guess. I have a lot of questions on what makes somebody good.
We can get to that.
I just don't. I think I don't have enough appreciation for driving. To be honest, I like when I drive, it's very relaxing. Like what? Well, how is it? Like I guess I don't understand.
Totally, I completely. I understand that.
I do. I'm happy that they're like racing and winning and things, but right now I'm into the personalities.
I think that's great. Okay. I honestly do, and I think more people need to accept the fact that people can like the sport because they like the people, and they don't like. There's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with rooting for a driver simply because you like who they are.
And I think I will care more once I actually start watching the races and stuff, because I haven't. I mean, I watched that one race with you, but you weren't really. Yeah, you didn't really know what was going on. I mean, so now I will. Yeah, more. You know,
I completely agree. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about social media very quickly. So, when do you decide? Because we experienced this when we were in Scotland. Like, when do you decide that it's time to follow a person on Instagram? Like, what? Like, is it just when you're like, you know what? I am curious what they're up to.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I'm so used to like the NFL. Like I follow some NFL. Like I'm thinking of other sports I follow, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, who do I follow NFL wise? And it's like, Travis Kelce doesn't post anything anymore. Like, why do I even follow him? Give me some content. No, but I follow like Patrick Mahomes. They just like don't post enough good content. So I'm like, who actually are they gonna have like very what's that? I don't know, like PR content,
right? Or like show their actual
genuine
lives.
Content. I'm like, so I gave Lando a follow, and I gave Who else have I followed?
I think you follow Daniel.
Oh yeah, I follow Daniel, but they really haven't given me much in the last month.
I was gonna say,
but I think they're on Christmas.
Yeah, wait for Daniel will definitely deliver if he probably has when this by the time this episode comes out. But I feel like they do a good job. Daniel specifically, some other drivers of like doing like a nice photo dump every like month or so of just like fun pictures, like kind of behind, like BTS pictures. You're like,
I want some Joe Jonas carousels.
That's,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Joe Jonas has been good on
this. Like they'll give you, Daniel specifically,
okay.
Lando will give you a couple good ones. Like they're good about showing you their lives. I think they're much better than, because I'm the same way. I follow some NFL people too. And I'm like, this is not that interesting.
You know who, like, I was like, I obviously really like Max, but he just gives me the vibe that he's not going to put good content out.
No.
Okay. I'm right about that.
He's definitely, his Instagram's definitely controlled by, like some PR person.
Sure.
Like that's the vibe I get from him. Like I follow him. Like obviously he'll post like pictures every now and then, but he's definitely not top of the list of like A+. I would say the best people on Instagram are, Lewis is great.
Okay.
He delivers some good, especially
I did follow
Lewis
him too.
will do a good post race photo dump.
Okay.
Pierre Gasly also does a really good post race photo dump.
Okay.
Daniel is very strong. I think Lando is good. Charles Leclerc is pretty good. Carlos Sainz, I know you're a little not so into Carlos.
You know what? He's growing on me.
Okay. He's pretty good.
We'll see.
They're honestly all for the most. There's a handful that are not very good, but I would say they do a good job.
It's interesting. Not that I like. What are their goals? Because are they trying to be the personality, or are they like, are a lot of them strictly race is my 100% and it
I think there's like I think there's some people who understand like that they're also a brand and they have to like you know they have to not promote themselves, but like people do care about what they post on Instagram and like there's value in that, and also I think they just like enjoy doing it. Daniel has a Instagram called Daniel JPEG. Actually, Lando has one too. Lando started it, but basically they have these cameras and they just like they post all of their pictures that they take on like this camera. So like a lot of like their dumps will be on that page of just like random photos, and like it's fun because they'll so like
people to follow. We following the pit crew.
you might. I'm telling you. Yeah, I think they're much better on social media than a lot of other athletes, which I am grateful for. Just as a person who likes to consume good content, it always
Give
helps me.
What we want.
Exactly. Okay, so you obviously know that Red Bull has won all of the races but one race last year. Like you know that they're super successful, that they're dominating. Max is dominating in the current day. Does that deter you from wanting to like jump in and be like a F1 fan and watch the races?
Honestly, a little bit. I feel like knowing that Max is gonna win is like, it's just, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really. I know that people generally just cheer for whoever is second place or whatever. I think that's like a general, like most people. That's kind of
like exactly.
But I think that's kind of lame. I don't know. Just my first take. I'm like, I don't know. A sport where somebody wins all the time is kind of annoying.
It's hard too because like in football, for example, or basketball, it's like you play individual games against different teams, and so every team, like there's so many different ways for teams to win and teams to lose, but in Formula One they're all racing the same races every single time, so you don't have that so that's different. But I do feel like it is, I think that's a big talking point too for people, is like, will this Red Bull dominance deter people from joining the sport? Does it matter? Like, should we care about that? Should we not care about that? I think it's totally understandable for someone who's just getting into the sport to be like, wait, this is weird. As me now, 2 years in, I can like understand why, like what's happening, and I can appreciate the sport for the sport and like each individual race and like enjoy, which that sounds like very like whatever. But it is interesting. Like, as you said, there are very few sports where it's just like, all right, come enjoy the sport. We basically know who's going to win every single time. You know, have fun.
I think the part and Drive to Survive does a really good job of like talking about like the points and stuff and all of that mattering. So I think that's probably like where things get interesting of like people are still winning points and points still matter. So I think that helps it, but
yes,
I mean, yeah, as like a very brand new fan, it's not like
I understand.
Not ideal.
Totally. Okay, so where does your interest go from here? Like, are you going to finish the show? Are you going to go to races? Like, what's in your brain for the next few months?
I mean,
weeks?
I definitely want to finish Drive to Survive. I feel like it's attainable. I'm trying. I would love. It's a lot, and I feel like the hour-long episodes are. I don't know. It's a lot that I feel I can't binge watch it. I don't know. Did you binge watch it?
So it's funny. I initially had it as when I first was like, I'm going to watch this show. I was going to watch it as like my background show.
Yeah.
Like my show that I have on while I work. And
Same.
then I was like, excuse me, Daniel Ricciardo, whatever, I became obsessed.
Yeah.
And then I got promoted, I say, to my primetime slot, which was my which is my dinner time show,
awesome.
like the show that I watch while I'm eating dinner and like my evening
Yes.
show. And for me, I wanted to binge it, but I rationed it out because I was like so into it that I wanted to make it last longer.
Yeah.
Now, when I became a fan, there were only 3 seasons out. Like the 4th season came out while I was, so I had a lot less to go through. But I will say, like, I feel like at least in future seasons, there's like a good mix of like some 35-minute episodes and then some that are like 50-minute, like they kind of alter or change. And I would also maybe even say, I mean, I want you to watch the whole thing, but I would maybe say jump to season 5 and like watch season 5
Make sure
and
you
like get caught up to of like what's gone on
before the season starts.
And
And
then you can then watch the because I think season 6 is going to drop in February, so like then you can watch and like get to know what happened last season, and then you can jump it, and then when you have time you can go back and watch seasons 3 and 4. They are actually, I really like seasons 3 and 3 particularly, as you get some good context for like some of these drivers and introduced to people. Like you probably don't know who Alex Albon is.
No.
Yeah, like he comes into in season 3. There's some good characters.
I mean, I know like 5 people right now.
Yuki comes in season 4. He's a fireball, fun person to watch. So like, I definitely think it's worth it. But
I'll probably be
if time is of the essence, you know, you can work around it.
No, I think I think it's attainable.
Okay,
for me
good.
to watch them all, and I hope to watch them all. It's also like I'm usually watching with people that I'm like, again, I'm like, do I subject you to this middle of the season Formula One that you've never
I know.
So a little bit of that has, especially like, I was trying to watch during Christmas, and I was like, well, I can't make my 70-year-old mom watch this. She actually did watch a few episodes that she did. Like, she was like, she's from Indy, so she likes the IndyCars anyways, but
and also like it doesn't hurt that like it's attractive guys. That doesn't hurt.
And like they're going, the Melbourne episode was up, and they're going to Australia, so they're like, oh, that's cool. Like, so, I don't know, it's the weird things that get you
totally
in, I guess, but so they saw that on the screen and thought that was kind of cool. But
I think that's great. So okay, so then and then are you going to plan to watch the season? Like, do you want to watch the races?
Definitely. I was just thinking I'm in a good spot because I'm living in Scotland right now, so I can definitely watch like all of the Europe ones without having to either wake up really early or stay up late. I guess it would be more of waking up early, but
staying up late too. Like if it's in the States, they'll be staying up late.
Well, okay, Bahrain is the first one, right?
And, So starts with Bahrain, and
those
then
will be hard.
Saudi Arabia is the second race, and then Australia is the third race. Australia, I think for you will be like in the morning. So that would be nice. For us, it's like midnight.
So I'm at the point where if it's convenient timing, I will
watch it.
I'm the same with the Chiefs, and I feel like I'm a diehard Chiefs fan.
Exactly.
I'm not waking up at 3 a.m. to watch it. So I
also
I'm
think
at that point.
It's a good not to like, you know, this isn't personal, but like, you know, you've talked about like wanting to make friends and like get into like, you know, and I feel like there's a lot of places to like watch it in public. Like, I mean, we went to some of those bars and they had like, we show Formula One races. And I think it would be fun to like on a Sunday, be like, okay, I'm going to go at 3:00 and I'm going to watch the race and be around other people. You might meet some people. I actually had a listener message me who lives in Glasgow.
Oh, hit me up.
And she was like, oh my God, I didn't know that you were there. And so, yeah, if you live in Scotland or live in Glasgow, surrounding region, and you love F1, Fev is looking for F1 watchers, and that would be so fun.
I would, yeah.
So message me, and then I can vet the person, and I can send them along to you.
Yes.
I think that would be so. Yeah, there's something really fun. Hannah and I talk about this a lot about like having something. This sounds so dumb, but like. Just like, okay, like F1's on this weekend. It's like a fun thing to have, like an activity to have on a weekend that
100%.
like you look forward to. And F1 is great because it's an hour. It's basically like an hour and a half, the race. Yeah. And then you're done. Like there's no commercials. Like, it's gonna, like, when it starts, roughly when it's gonna end. And it's not like a, football where you're like waiting around for hours and hours and hours. And it's just like a nice treat type of thing.
I love that. Yeah, I totally would. I mean, use it.
I think you would love that. Yeah, social. You
Yeah.
can like, you can go to fun bars, all that kind of stuff.
Do you ever go to bars or anything?
We
in
actually,
Kansas City? I don't even know. Like that's what I'm like. How I know it's not as big in the U.S., but like,
I mean, it definitely is like getting to that point.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. There's Pathlight Brewery. I don't know if you know that in Kansas City. I think it's in Mission. They show every F1 race.
Interesting.
I think there's a couple of places that show races. Unfortunately for us, because we do this show, we do the recaps right after we record. I typically will watch it. I typically actually watch it with my parents, or at least last year, just because then I can come down and record afterwards. So I would like to watch it, but then I'm also like such a nervous Nelly.
No, I know
that
what
like
you
it's
mean.
not always the most fun to watch it with people.
And I'm like, I would be embarrassing in public.
Yeah,
like at the Super Bowl and stuff. I'm like, I cannot be at a bar. I need to be.
Yeah, there are some races that I'm just like that I can think back on. I'm like, oh, I would not have been like
a pleasant person to be
around. Yeah,
no,
exactly. Okay, and then last question for you before you turn the table. Do you have any advice for someone who's trying to get a friend, family member into F1? Like, what do you suggest they do as like a tactic to get them interested?
Well, okay, I'm gonna like what worked for me. I think was seeing the content. So I think it's hard if they don't like already like. I am lucky I got to follow somebody who does put out content, and like I kind of
step one, follow fan behavior at an F1 podcast on Instagram.
Figure out their passcode and just start like, when you like speak into your phone.
Secretly follow us for them. Yeah, that's
They'll
a good call.
Like, why is this happening?
That's a good call.
When you get like all these ads.
Yes,
and
yes.
So start doing that. No,
okay.
I think you can just. Make them take like a personality quiz for like which F1 driver are you, and then make them follow that person. But
I think you're right about the content part of it, especially like if most of our listeners are women around our age. I mean, obviously we have men that listen to us, people that are all different ages, but I think I've always said like you kind of have to identify the people in your life that like this sounds strange, but like relate to content or like enjoy content the way that you enjoy content. And like Hannah was very much that way. So I like knew when I brought her this show, she would love it. I have other friends, the same thing. It's like, they're going to like it because they like what I like. And you're the same way too. And so like YouTube for me, like I should send you some, I think that Daniel and Lando become teammates. Yep. Okay. There are some absolutely incredible YouTube videos of the two of them that are just like, if you watch it, you're just like,
how could you not?
Soul. I'm going to send them. I'm going to send them because you're going to be obsessed. And so it's like that kind of stuff where it's just like, especially if it's a person who's not a big sports fan, like you're going to have to get them in through the personality. Yeah. That's the way. Or sit them down with you, invite them over for a race and pray to God that it's a really exciting race.
That's what I was, invite over for a race and just say, we're going to have breakfast and watch and like, no. And then I think also like if Drive to Survive, like if you want to sit down and hang out and we're going to watch Drive to Survive, I don't know if they're like over and you're looking for something to watch. I think it's fair to bring up and
totally
I'm trying to think, what episode would you just start with season 1?
I start with season 1, episode 1, and I agree with you. Like I think you have to like with my parents, they were watching the first season and they were kind of like into it, but like and then I came home for some weekend, and I sat down with them and I started to watch with them, and I was like explaining, okay, this is what who this person is. This is what's happening here. I was giving some context as they were watching, kind of explaining things. And so they got more into it because they were having someone there who could like explain what was happening.
Totally.
And I think if you're wanting someone to get into it, like invite them over and like sit with them and watch a handful and like
if you like, I love it because you love it. Like, I mean, I like wanted to try it because I was like, oh,
I have a friend who likes it.
Like, I want to see what it's all about. So I think that helps. Agree. If somebody loves, like, I always love to like learn what my friends' family love. Just because I love them.
Yes. So, and it does help when someone like vets, like when you like have someone in your life that they're like, I love this. Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll be interested in that too, probably. Yeah. I completely agree. Okay, do you want to ask me some F1 questions? If you have any, no dumb questions.
No dumb questions taken from one of our other favorite podcasts.
New Heights. We talk about them all the time on this podcast.
Yeah,
we do.
That's also, I need to start listening. You're going to have to give me some recs on for other formula, because I know there's like movies and so. Actually, I was literally watching the Today Show today. A Ferrari. And my mom was like, oh, that's Formula 1 too. I was like, I didn't know how many Formula 1 everywhere. Things are out there.
Yeah, Adam Driver was, I'm a big Adam Driver fan.
Yes. This is your dream come true.
I know. And he was at the US GP this year. I saw him there. He was there
with him a kiss?
I saw him hug Charles Leclerc, and spoiler alert, Carlos Sainz is driving for Ferrari. I don't know if you know that.
I don't have enough. See, that's where I'm like, I feel like one thing that is like a putting off to me is there's too many teams. Like, there's only 10, but like
I was gonna say there's 10.
There's just too many people to remember, and who belongs to who, and who belongs to what team.
They move around so much that becomes difficult.
So for me, I'm like, I don't even know who is what. I can't even tell you what Carlos Sainz is on season 1. It just didn't lock into my head.
I agree. I understand. It's too much. Okay, go for it. Ask away.
Now that I'm outing myself as having some questionable thoughts. Okay. My first question was like, why do you think Formula 1 is so popular compared to all the other racing stuff, and like what sets it apart from NASCAR, Indy, whatever else is out there?
Sure. I think it's interesting actually because Formula 1 actually isn't, like, if you look at the TV ratings and stuff in America specifically, and I guess I should say we're speaking strictly about like the US. Obviously, Formula 1 is the most popular in Europe and around the world, and IndyCar, NASCAR are both American racing series. So, but NASCAR actually has like higher ratings than Formula 1 in the States. The thing that's interesting is that where they struggle is the young demographic. So NASCAR skews older. So older people watch NASCAR.
Got it.
So that's where they are kind of at this place where they're trying to figure out how to bring in new young fans. Then that's where F1 really is succeeding, is that I don't know what the like 25 to 35 age range, or even younger, 20 to 35 are really, really interested in the sport. So so NASCAR still has a pretty big following, and it's so funny because I used to just like look down on NASCAR so hardcore, and now that I've gotten into racing, I know more about it. I don't know a lot about NASCAR, but I have so much more like respect and understanding of the sport and like the intricacy that like, and like the skill that is required to be successful at it. IndyCar is really interesting, and I love IndyCar. I got into it last year kind of like for the first time, and we went to our first IndyCar race, and it's very similar to Formula 1. Like the cars are very similar. They race on, so what makes it different, and I think almost better in a way, is they race like on street circuits like in F1. So like,
really?
Yeah. So they'll race in the streets. Like we went to the Nashville race this past year. So like they'll, take down street, and race on streets. They'll race on permanent racetracks like Formula 1 as well. And then they'll also race on ovals.
Right. Because I've been to the Indy 500 just when I was way younger. But.
Yes. Which I would love to go to. I feel like it's like a crazy experience. So they do all three, which I think is interesting. And they also have really great personalities like F1, like young, fun, like likable people that you're like, oh, that person's interesting, that person's fun, I want to like learn more about who they are. They're good on social media.
Do
all that
they
kind
have
of
a
stuff.
show,
So
or how do people get into it? Like
they had a show called like, was it called like Racing to Indy or something? It was all about like the lead up to the Indy 500.
Okay.
And actually it was on the CW channel.
Oh.
It was last year, I believe. So people could watch that. But it's great. I think it's awesome. And I think it's like there's a lot of F1 fans who have become IndyCar fans in the last handful of years because it's like the most similar to Formula One.
Okay. Yeah, I could see
but it's
that.
definitely not as like glitzy glamour as F1. It's so much more, I mean, it's so accessible, way less expensive.
Yeah.
You can get so much for so little with IndyCar, which I think is great.
Because NASCAR, like, I mean, we have the NASCAR.
Yeah, Kansas Speedway.
The Kansas Speedway.
Yeah.
So I know their demographic or whatever. It seems just very different.
It does
to
seem
Formula
different.
One.
It does seem different.
What draws that type of person into NASCAR versus, that type of person into Formula One?
I think the European influence also really affects Formula One as well.
And Monte Carlo and like sort of,
and it's a very, I mean, all racing is expensive, but F1 particularly is just a really expensive sport to be in. So, and I think it's also like, we have to admit, like, it's a trendy sport right now. Like, it's a trendy, cool thing. Everyone's like, we're seeing all these influencers, people going to like the Vegas race or wherever, and people are like, oh, Alex Earl is in Miami. Like, I'm curious about what she's doing.
Not the Alex Earl effect.
I'm serious. It's true.
No, I mean, I think I've seen like Will Smith, and you see them.
Yeah, lots of celebrities.
Like,
Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are investing.
That was
investors
the first
in teams.
thing when I had it on at my house. My dad said, he's like, didn't the Chiefs, didn't Patrick and I was like, yeah, they're McLaren, right?
Alpine.
No, I told him wrong.
Oh
wow.
no, so
I can
Renault.
I don't even know what Alpine is.
Renault gets rebranded to Alpine.
See, that's too much. We're taking it one day at a time.
You don't have to know everything all at once. You've been a fan for like a month. It's fine.
It's so much to get, but it's interesting. Okay. Okay. So I think technical terms.
Oh yeah, I have some of those.
Yeah. If we want to, where to start with those?
Yes.
Because let me tell you what I know. It's pretty little.
Okay.
But basically, I know tires are important, and that's what they change.
Yes.
Like I told you,
no. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
No. This is where we're at the beginning.
Yes.
But like, I know the tires are really important. But like, and this is gonna sound so dumb.
Don't say that.
Like, I change my tires like every 5 years. I go like 80 on them. It's like, I'm like, you have to change them every like 30 minutes. What are we doing?
That's a great question. So many great questions. Okay, let's talk about tires first. So it's funny you bring up tires because there are three main compounds of tires: soft, medium, and hard. Okay. Now, what's funny is, like, you've probably seen this when we watch the race. They have like a leaderboard up on the side of the screen where it says where every person is, and then next to their name they'll have an S, M, or H next to their name, which basically shows what compound they are on currently. When I watched my first race, I was like, what the hell is SM? I could not figure it out for the life of me, and then finally I found out that it was a tire compound. I was like, oh my god, I'm so dumb. So basically, in simplest terms, soft tires are the fastest tires.
Okay.
They are the quickest. They're going to be like, that's what's used in qualifying, because they're going to give you the fastest 1 lap pace time.
Quick.
Yes. Yeah. But because they're so fast, they're going to wear very quickly. Okay. So you can only use them for a certain, their life is very short. Medium, as you can expect, it's in the middle. Not the fastest, not the slowest. It's going to last a medium amount of time. And then hard tires are going to take a lot longer to like get up to speed and up to temperature. Okay, temperature is very important in the tires, like getting them to the right warmth, and especially because every climate's different wherever they race. Sometimes it's hot, super hot. Sometimes it's very cold, rainy, super sunny. So it's really important for them to like figure out, how are we going to get them the best tire to give us the best speed.
A lot of math.
So those are the three main tire compounds. There's also a wet tire that basically looks like the tires we use that have like the grooves in them. Typical F1 tires are like completely smooth.
Yeah.
And then they have what's called like an intermediate tire, which is basically in between. You would see them use them like if it has just rained. It's not currently raining, but like it's still potentially wet.
Yeah.
They might put on those tires. So the reason they change, so they have every F1 race, you have to pit at least once.
Okay.
You have to, and you have to use two different sets of tires or two different tire compounds.
Oh,
so you have to use either soft, hard, medium, hard.
Okay.
Hard, soft. So like you can't go medium,
Soft,
medium.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some races where they have like they'll basically there's like a strategy call like or they'll basically like reveal depending on the track like what's the fastest strategy. Is it a 1-stop race? Is it a 2-stop race? Again, depending on how quickly the tires are going to degrade. And so sometimes you'll see drivers pit 3 times in a race.
Interesting.
And so like you could do if it was a 2-stop race, someone could start on softs, go onto hards, and then go back onto softs again. But you have to at least use 2 different during a race.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Okay.
It's just I never
It's
knew
interesting.
that.
Yeah. So tires are a big deal. Tires are very important. And you'll often see too, like if a tire is really worn down, like it looks very they call it like tire graining or whatever. It looks like almost like it's like breaking down. Like it's like
in Drive to Survive there was I can't remember which driver it was either, but there was one that had like a blister.
Yeah.
And they were
blisters.
like, we gotta be done because
Yep.
work.
Yep.
No blisters.
Okay, some other terms. I think the most important term you should know, because I feel like there's so much in F1, like
start small.
Well, and also like about the car itself, like the engine and all that stuff. And that's the other, like, I think misconception is like the people think you have to be interested in cars or like engineering to like Formula One. You obviously can, and you might become interested in those things as you become a fan. But like, I don't really care about cars. I don't really care about that stuff. It doesn't matter, and I still love the sport. But it's DRS.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of this term.
Yes. Yeah. There's a few acronyms out there, but DRS is
the main one. So it stands drag reduction system.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to explain this as best I can. It's basically like a turbo boost in Mario Kart.
That's the best way to describe it. Yes.
Basically what it is. So every track has DRS zones is what they're called. They're basically like on the long straight because every track is different, looks different. And so some tracks might have 2, some might have 1, 3. And basically those are parts of the track where you are able to use your DRS. Now, what that is let's say you and I are racing, okay? Yeah. And you're in front of me.
Okay.
I have to be within a second of you. So less than a second behind you before I get to the DRS zone in order to use my DRS. So if I'm less than a second, say I'm half a second behind you when we get to the DRS zone, I can press a button. I mean, it genuinely is like turbo boost. I press a button on my steering wheel and it drops a flap on the back wing, which basically like allows the air to pass through, and it gives you like 15 kilometers extra speed. And the point of it is to help with passing. It's supposed to like facilitate more passing. Now, you would not be able to use your DRS unless you were a second behind somebody else. But let's say the next person in front of you was like 7 seconds ahead, you wouldn't be able to use it. So you're kind of a sitting duck.
Interesting. So you want your DRS to be used to launch you enough that it's more than 1 second too, because could they use it like if I raced you behind you, I used it and then you used it immediately after?
Yes. That happens a lot. And like it also happens like I might be a second behind, or let's say less than a second behind you, but then you might be less than a second behind somebody else, and they might be less than a second behind. So then it becomes what they call a DRS train. Yeah. So everybody has DRS, so that means it doesn't really matter because everyone's using it.
The same advantage.
So again, people get stuck because it's like there's no passing because everyone's stuck in this DRS train.
Okay.
So that's the main. And that was an introductory, that's like very basic level of explaining it. But that's, so you'll see that often like a driver will pull out from behind a car, you'll see their flap open, and then they'll just kind of easily pass through. But yes, you're very right about the fact that that's happened a lot where people will then, that driver that got passed will then be right behind and then get to pass back again when they get to the next DRS zone.
That's fun.
Okay, some other. I mean, there's not really much else to go over that I feel like is like. There's obviously lots of terms, but like
they'll come with time.
They'll come with time.
Yeah, we'll do a part two.
They'll come with time. If someone talks about a car's livery, I don't know if you've heard that.
Liver, like your
livery.
Liver.
Yeah, LIV.
Okay. Nope.
ERY. It basically is like the outside, like how the car looks on like the paint job, basically on the outside of the car. So like they'll talk about how like cars will have like a livery reveal. They'll reveal their new livery for 2024. Okay. They might do like special ones for like specific races. That's a word you might hear a lot, and you're like, "What the fuck is that?" That's basically. I think DRS was the one that I was like, she needs to know that for an F1 race. She needs to understand.
I don't really remember a ton from when we watched it together. But do the announcers like announce when they're doing that? Like, do they do a good job of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see it. You can watch out for it. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. So now with race weekends,
yes,
important. Understand there's they just talk about practice qualifiers, all of these different things that happen. So what does a typical one look like? Where's the variation?
Yes.
What do I need to watch?
It's actually very simple.
Okay.
So a normal race weekend begins on Thursday is media day. Drivers will come to the track and that's when they do all their interviews with like different sports reporters. They'll do like they'll film their videos for their YouTube channel. They'll play games with their teammate. Like that's when they kind of do all that stuff.
Sure.
I do some other like stuff for sponsors, whatever, but nothing on the track. Then Friday, you have two practices. Practice 1, practice 2. And that's basically just when the teams go out and they're just trying different things. They're gathering a bunch of data. What tires are working, what aren't working, fuel loads, they'll be testing that.
Do they practice by themselves or do they try everyone
on the track at the same time? And they can come in whenever they want and change things around, change their tires, go back out. It's called free. It's called free practice. So it's just basically free for all. People can do whatever the hell they want. There's 2 of those on Friday. Saturday, there's a practice in the morning. So they have a total of 3 practices over the course of a race weekend. Okay. Then qualifying. Yeah, it is a lot. Then qualifying is typically Saturday afternoon. Now that is like this is actually interesting. I love qualifying. I love it. And I think it's almost like oftentimes more exciting. I shouldn't say oftentimes, but it can be as exciting as a race weekend or as a race. Okay, so basically it's in 3 stages. It begins with Q1, qualifying 1. All cars are eligible. You have 17 minutes. The goal is to get the fastest time you can get within that 17 minutes. Okay. So drivers will going around trying to get 1 lap as fast as they can. Now, what happens at the end of those minutes, actually I think it's 18 minutes. What happens at the end of those minutes is the 5 slowest drivers get dropped. Oh. And they don't advance to the next stage. So let's say Daniel Ricciardo starts qualifying and he ends qualifying or Q1 in 17th place. He's out of qualifying and he will be starting the race on Sunday in 17th place. Okay. Then you move on to Q2. Now, let's say you finished Q1 in 9th. It doesn't mean you start the race in 9th, but you just have advanced to the next stage. Q2, again, now 15 drivers are eligible. And I think it's 15 minutes. And again, same thing. Okay. Try to get the fastest time you can get within that time frame.
It's like the pacer.
Yes. And again, when it's up, the bottom 5 drivers get dropped. So that would be
10
from
left.
Yeah. So then Q3 is 10 left, and that is for pole position. Pole position's the first. And
for the race.
And that is all out, top 10, and wherever you finish after Q3 is where you're going to start the race. It's interesting because the track can often like change as more cars get on it and it gets like warmed up basically.
Interesting. I could see that.
Your times get faster as the session goes on, and you only, drivers will like change their tires, put on a fresh set of tires to get the fastest lap ever. but sometimes they don't do it at the right time, and so then they don't. And basically, like you have to start your lap when the time goes down to 0. So like you can start your final lap technically when it's 1 second, and then boom, you can start it. And so it's like often a mad dash to the end. And so a bunch of times are falling and people are dropping down. Like someone's in 12th, but then they get, drop down to 13th or 14th because other cars are going faster. And it becomes this like crazy mayhem of like, who's going to make it through? It's really fun. It's really fun.
It sounds fun.
And
sounds exciting.
It's like a sprint kind of thing. I mean, not exactly, but it can feel that way sometimes. And it often adds like shocking elements. People will get out, someone will get out in Q2 and you'll be like, oh my God, like that's crazy.
The people who get out in Q2, Q1 and Q2 though, they still get to race.
They get to race. Everyone gets to race. Yeah.
But they like timing wise or like the space P, whatever position that they're in.
Yeah.
Do they just get put in a random order? Is it literally?
It's literally where they finish in the qualifying. Yeah. So if you finish qualifying in like 15th, you're going to start the race in 15th. Unless there's some like penalty. There's penalties involved as well, but that's a whole other thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's great. And then Sunday's the race.
Yeah.
So that's the order. If there's a sprint,
always.
Well, kind of. If there's a sprint race, if it's a sprint weekend, there's 6 of those in a race weekend. There's only 2 practices or there's a practice on Friday.
Okay.
They're actually going to change it this year, I think.
Interesting.
But basically they eliminate the gist is they eliminate one of the practices and they add on the Saturday, the qualifying in the past years, qualifying has been on Friday.
Yeah.
They'll do a sprint qualifying and a sprint race on Saturday, like its own little separate thing. And then the race is on Sunday.
Okay.
But generally, what you need to know is like practices are on Friday. There's a practice on Saturday morning, qualifying, and then the race.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's really
these poor guys.
I also like don't like the information I'm giving at you. I'm like I know it's like what the fuck, like it's so much to comprehend.
Yeah.
But once you start to watch it, it just. It's like really you have to watch to fully grasp.
That's what I'm like excited to get to the season because I feel like I'll actually be I'll have a little more
you'll learn more
stake in the game.
Totally.
I guess,
totally.
But right now I'm just figuring it out.
It's okay.
Where do we go from here? Okay,
what else is important?
Oh well, I wanted to start. So they do talk quite a bit about this in Drive to Survive about go-karting and everything, but like I wanted to hear your perspective of like how does one get started and how are they like I don't know, everybody go-karts, but like what are they paying to do this? Like how does one get started?
Yeah. And go-karting is the way to start. There's like many go-karting series that happen, like racing series. It is super expensive, F1 in general, but like racing in general is just so expensive. And so they'll go-kart until I'm not sure when like they stop go-karting, but up until like their teenage age, they'll be in that. There's lots of ways to get into Formula One, and there's many that we don't need to get into all the ways, but like the general way is, so there's F1 obviously, but there's also F2, F3, and F4.
Okay, interesting.
And so drivers will, and again, this is like a generalized, there's drivers who've gotten into it through other ways, but you start in F4 when you're like a teenager, and then you work your way up to F3, and then you do F2. Are they
all the same cars?
No, they're different.
No, okay.
Yeah, they're different.
Interesting.
And then F2 is like that's like there's a lot of drivers who will get into F1 through either winning F2 or doing well in F2. They'll get their shot. So that's like the kind of pipeline into Formula One, but it's really expensive.
It sounds expensive.
It's really hard to get in. It's very elite, and
Formula One, they obviously make a lot of money.
Yes,
sponsors and everything. And I thought that was interesting actually too, was that so their individual sponsors, like you can be sponsored, like Daniel Ricciardo can be, and then their teams can also be sponsored. So, but so, and I can't remember which one it was again, but maybe it was Charles or one of them, but they were they were sponsored and had so much sponsorship individually that a team wanted them more.
Yes.
I don't know.
I mean, that is like it's also like marketing is very important. Right. So like Daniel Ricciardo, for example, people feel like he's still in the sport because he's so marketable.
Yeah.
I disagree with that logic. I mean, he is marketable, but I disagree that he's only in because of his marketability.
Right.
But yeah, he'll bring in people because they're like, oh, Daniel Ricciardo races for your team.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to, I want him selling my whatever it is.
Exactly. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So my point of asking that was, or like bringing that up was, so do Formula 2, do they have opportunity? Do they make money?
Yes.
Is it do people watch it?
So they're like a support series for F1. So they'll I think a handful, I'm not sure the exact number, they will race on the same weekend as Formula 1 in the Formula 1 locations.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can, like when you go to an F1 race, you're not just seeing F1, you're seeing other racing series as well, oftentimes. So they'll get to do that. And yeah, I mean, each F2 team has sponsors and drivers can have sponsors, but it's just, but you have to basically like provide money in order to get a seat as well. Like you have to bring money with you to like get that seat. So it's very challenging.
Yeah, there's a lot of barriers to entry.
Very
there.
much so. Very much so.
Interesting. Okay, so this is where I'm like, this gets a little back to the technical stuff, but like, what about the cars are actually making them better? And like,
this is a good question.
Why don't teams? Max is obviously the best. I get it. He wins time and time again. Why don't teams figure out what the heck he's doing with their car?
Yeah,
and just copy paste. What
so
are we
this
doing?
is so interesting. So IndyCar is different. So IndyCar is like a spec series, what they call it. Basically, like all the teams have basically the same type of car, and they can like make tweaks within that range. But like it's very. There's a lot of parity, and there's only 2 engine providers in in IndyCar. So like you're not really going to have an engine advantage. F1 is an engineering sport. Every team individually engineers and creates and comes up with their car concept and their whole thing. So everyone's different. Everyone's on their own. Now there's some teams that are like aligned with certain teams. For example, Haas uses Ferrari engines. McLaren uses Mercedes engines. AlphaTauri, which is like the Red Bull junior team. So Red Bull uses Honda engines. AlphaTauri uses Honda engines. There are certain like pieces and parts of cars that you can have access to as teams. Like you can kind of figure out what other teams are doing, but a lot of it is under lock and key. You do not know what other teams are doing unless you can physically see it with your eyes. Oh, they've changed this. They've done that.
Aerodynamics of
exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
So everyone's different. So Red Bull, for example, have like the best engineer, the best mind in Formula 1, Adrian Newey, who is like a genius.
Good for him.
Genius car designer, like just makes incredibly successful cars.
Yeah.
So Max is an amazing driver, but he also has the fastest car.
Yeah.
The Honda engine is very good, very reliable. That's another thing, is like some of these engines are not very reliable. They're going to break down.
Interesting.
They're going to cause problems. So you want to have a good engine. But I've heard from like F1 drivers have said, if every driver was in the same car, and they did like a qualifying session or something, 1 lap pace, people have said like the time from 1 to 20 would be like less than half a second.
Really?
That they're all actually very, very, very close. It really is the car and how the car is designed, because every driver also makes tweaks and changes things and likes things a certain way. And so it's really set up for certain people and all that stuff. So that's, people love that about Formula 1, and also people hate that about Formula 1.
Right, because that was going to be kind of another question of like, how much is the driver actually, and you already kind of answered that, but like, is the driver really good or is the car really good?
Yeah.
Or is it
it's a combination of both.
Or is it 50-50? Is it like 70-30?
It's definitely, I would say, I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm not an engineer by any means, but I would estimate it's probably something like 70-30.
Okay.
Like Lewis Hamilton,
with the car being more important.
Okay, yeah. Like Lewis last year, Mercedes had a terrible car, or terrible by their standards, and like Lewis didn't do that great,
right?
And like Lewis is a fantastic, like it was very clear, like it's very clear, okay, the car is bad, and that's the other thing, and that's why like your teammate is so, like the teammate dynamic is interesting, because you are only really judged based off how you do compared to your teammate, because
Right.
they're
You
the
have the same
only one that
car.
has the same car.
Yeah.
So if you are doing much, much worse than your teammate, it's clear that you are the problem.
Interesting.
Because
they are the same car. Like
they are the same
so
car.
Red Bull has
yeah.
the same.
Now they might change like the setup
Yeah,
changes and
very.
stuff, but like the car itself is the same. So yeah, you
Interesting.
can't that, and that's why it's funny. Like you can never really compare Max and Lewis, for example,
Right.
because they've never been in the same car.
Right.
We will never know who the true GOAT is because we never will see them in the same machinery.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
that's why people also make a big deal about like beating somebody in equal machinery, like because they'll be like,
Yep.
oh, I beat Lewis and I had the same, like his teammates. If it's, they'll be like, I've had the same car as him, so like I'm actually pretty good because
That's an
you know what I mean?
interesting thing to note about the dynamic, because that's what I was saying earlier about the dynamic of the teammates is weird because they seem like they're fighting each other quite a bit.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. So that makes sense on they're in the same
For
machinery.
sure.
They want to kind of prove that they're really the driver. That's
the best.
Great.
Totally.
Very interesting on the cars. I'm like, don't understand.
I know it's a lot.
How they can be better and worse, and they all look the same to me. So,
anything else?
I mean, I have like other things, but I feel like maybe I'm. I feel like it's so much that I don't know. I'm just
it's a lot.
Taking it all in.
It's a lot.
It's a really awesome like thing to learn about that I feel like I've never been interested in anything like this before.
I
Like,
feel
we
the same way.
have like artists that we like, and then we have sports that we like, and you're right, like the team sports they're playing, like one A versus team B. It's like I've never followed a sport like this.
I know.
I mean, there's like track and things like that, but really,
I know.
it's very unique.
It's very unique, and I feel like I don't know if you're someone who like loves to like dive into stuff or like.
Yeah.
But like I think it's so
Definitely do.
interesting. Like I love going on to the Formula One like
Yeah.
Reddit pages and just like reading about it and like understanding stuff. We had some questions from some listeners. Some of them we've already kind of got into, like the sprint race, and someone asked what strategy is in Formula One.
Yeah.
Which I think is like a very overarching topic and like probably a whole episode.
Yep.
But basically like every driver, every team prior to a race weekend or prior to like the race itself is analyzing their data and is like, okay, how are we going to have the fastest, how are we going to like be the fastest car on the track on Sunday? And like, what do we have to do tire wise, pit wise? You also lose like 20 seconds in a pit stop.
Yeah.
Going into
about
pit.
the 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It seems like they go so fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, in, out.
I know.
Tires on.
I know. Well, that's from like going into like the pit lane, getting in and then going
off
out.
of the track.
Yeah. So strategy, essentially our teams figuring out what's our tire strategy. What are we starting on? What compound are we going to start on? It always depends on where we're starting on the track.
Yeah.
And then you're also basing it off of what other teams are doing and what happens in the race. Does someone crash?
Yeah.
We didn't even get to like safety cars or any of that stuff. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But so. And this is such a generalized explanation, but it really just is like.
Is there an algorithm? I'm sure they have their own.
There's there's like probably, obviously a lot of data points that they're looking at, and when do we come in for a pit stop? Do we react to what other teams are doing? There's just so much that goes into it, and I think this might be a good episode that we do going into all that stuff, like with someone who knows what they're talking about.
I was gonna say, get an engineer. Don't
expert. So I hope we answered. I mean, that was a lot of information.
That was awesome, though. I
mean, hope you don't feel overwhelmed.
I think it's overwhelming in a good way.
Okay,
like
good.
I don't want to follow anything that's easy. Like I want to be learning and I don't know, finding new things out about it. I feel like that's the joy of it, is that I'm not an expert, and I don't think there's many people that are like experts.
No, people pretend to be.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of, again, that's with the sport of like people claiming it as their own. It's like there's something new and improved and things to learn from everything.
I completely agree. Well, I think you're on the right path. I think my advice for you, not that you asked for advice, but I think you should definitely. I think you should watch season 5.
Yes.
I
like
think you should
right now.
I
like,
think you
just
should. I think you
swerve
should
into season
jump. I
5.
do think you should jump because
Shocking.
I know you, and I don't feel like you're gonna get there by the time the season rolls around.
Wow.
Maybe you will. Maybe you will. Maybe you will.
No, I know.
Or like
Busy
watch
lad.
5, and then if you have time, then go back and
Okay,
watch
yeah.
3 and 4. People probably will be like, "Oh my god, how dare she say that?" But I think because you know so many of the people,
I do, yeah.
and you'll be a little bit
I need some
confused. You'll be
context.
confused about like, wait, why is this person on this team? For example,
Yeah.
Daniel leaves Renault, goes to
okay.
McLaren.
Oh, okay.
Is with McLaren for a couple of years with Lando,
right.
and then stuff happens, and then whatever. But and then other people move around. But then I think you'll be prepared for season 6.
Okay.
And I think you'll also like it more because you will be, the like current. It's just more current.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's
gonna send
fair.
you YouTube videos for my one of my friends that got into the sport. I think like right after I did, I literally made a Google Doc of like all my favorite YouTube videos.
Oh, I
don't know
need
if you're a YouTube girl. I'm like a big YouTube girl. I watch like YouTube.
I'm definitely not a big of a YouTube
Okay,
girl.
great.
You are.
But I like I compiled all these videos because I like knew her, and I knew that she would love just like watching all these
Rabbit-holing
fun,
down
cute, funny
I'll watch
videos.
some YouTube videos.
I'll compile a few.
Okay,
I'll send
good.
you some.
Sweet.
I think you'll enjoy just like that show their personality and that are fun. And then I think you should watch. I think you find a place to watch the first race.
Okay.
I will consult with our people who maybe
find
know
me
somebody.
a place in Scotland.
Yeah, and
we'll go down to London. I'll go to the F1 arcade.
Yes, I think we have a
would be
lot of people that
epic.
watch that are from the
Anywhere in
UK
the
surrounding
UK,
area. If you're close to Glasgow, I guess let me know if you're willing to travel. This is like a matchmaker site.
Yeah, please.
And I just wish I could be there with you to like watch it.
Yeah, but you're coming to
That's true. I will come to the race.
Sandstone.
Silverstone. Sandstone used to be
we're still learning here.
Yeah, so you should come.
Yeah,
and you're going to be in perfect location to go to if you want to go to races, and they're really fun and so many fun people and great
Will you
vibes.
tell me which one should I
will.
go to?
I will do some. I mean, Monaco is pretty great.
Okay, yeah, I'm there. Somebody find me a yacht.
I went to Monaco last year. It was great.
Oh yeah, it does look epic.
I'll think of some of like where I feel like where it would be a good vibe.
Yeah,
for you.
I'm big on social events, so
I know you
anytime
you're
there's
gonna
a
enjoy
social
it.
gathering, I will
You're
be
enjoy
there.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Zoe.
It was so great having you and so fun. I love bringing new people into the sport, so it's
what
great.
it's all about.
Okay, I don't know if you know this, how we end the show. So Daniel has a clothing line called Enchanté.
Oh, I love this already.
So Hannah and I end every show by going Enchanté.
Okay, I love
All right. So that's how we're gonna end
With
the
the finger.
Well, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll count down.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Enchanté.